Good afternoon, I want to say warm, bright and sunny day. It is Thursday the 17th of August. I've got a nice hot cup of tea and a parcel to continue unboxing. What I've got in here is, can you see that? Is that, which is issues of Senet Magazine. And I've done unboxings of several of these, so the next one I'm going to do is Senet Issue number 9. This is a magazine dedicated to board games. It proudly proclaims that board games are beautiful, which is, if you look at the board games of today, then they are. Yes, they are very attractive looking things. So issue 9 came out in the winter of 2022. There have been a couple of issues since, I think, but I'm beginning to catch up with them. So we open up with, after this rather fetching cover, we open up with the editorial and the contents page, and we have Behold, and this is the preview section. The great thing about this essentially is this is looking at forthcoming releases, forthcoming Kickstarters. And reading this now, it's a case of going back and seeing, looking at these entries and going, did this game come out? Is it still going to come out or not? And if it did come out, did it live up to the promise and the enjoyment which this section basically suggested that it would? So look through, you just see essentially various different board games that were coming out in the winter of last year. And the great thing again about Senet is that it really pays attention to presenting the board games in clear fashion that makes them look interesting, accompanied by sort of decent descriptions, to achieve some idea of not only what the game looks like, but what it's going to be like to play and what it is about. So yeah, we'll continue onwards. But all this looks quite interesting, you know, worth going back and looking. And then we have only a few games get the preview here, but we are on to Points, which is the letters page. Always interesting, you know, content raised, you know, basically picked by the editors. And then we have For the Love of the Game, which is Tristan Hall's continuing design journey on how he designs games, talking about his game Plume of Kilforth. It's got a nice advert there for Horrified, which is a really nice Ravensburger game. And then we have Rise of the Machines, which are engine building games. Now every issue of Senet looks at a particular type of mechanic in games. So in the past it has looked at roll and write and worker placement, deck building games, the use of roundels and so on. Here it's about the rise of the you know, essentially the engine building games, and it's going to be interesting to sort of look at some of these, look at the history and how that rule has been implemented across various designs. So the only thing I can say is that there's some very nice illustrations, but not necessarily of games themselves. It's sort of like does take a while before it mentions really or pictures any games. So, you know, nice illustrations, but what about the games? And then the Games Master, we have an interview with Sir Ian Livingstone, who's essentially a figure in gaming in the United Kingdom, and in the hobby who almost needs no introduction, having introduced Dungeons and Dragons to the British public, and created the Fighting Fantasy series with Steve Jackson, and just supported board games as a hobby, as well as obviously investing in computer games and the like. So, I mean, this comes on sort of like comes out. This magazine issue comes out at the time that Dice Man, his memoir with Steve Jackson of the early years of Games Workshop, appeared. So we actually have sort of like an issue of Owl and Weasel, the newsletter that the pair of them did in the early days of White Door, early days of Games Workshop. We've got a card from the Judge Dredd board game, which I recently unboxed and reviewed, and of course the cover for the first issue of White Dwarf, and designs of board games like Calamity and Battle Cards, which was essentially, yes, we can't do card wars, but we'll do something slightly different. And then we've got images, of course, of the titles from the Fighting Fantasy series, and or the other thing that Issues of Senet does is it looks at a particular theme. In this issue, in issue 9, the theme is pirates. So pirates on board. So we start off sort of here with with a collection of counters from the board game Blackbeard, and we have, so we have various titles essentially discussing the theme and how it's implemented. Even odder, I have no idea what that is. That's going to be interesting article to find out what that is. But yes, unlike the previous article on engine building, there's some actually illustrations of board games in here, and then we have an interview. So as a difference, so in the other thing the issue does is it interviews particular game designers. This has a bit of departure and interviews a game designer, but not of board games. Ewan Noor is best known as the one half of the designer of Bourge, the Doompunk old school Renaissance style role-playing game. In particular, in related to the cyberpunk iteration of Bourge, which is Cyborg, and we've got plenty of artwork on show from the core rulebook, and also lots of discussion of Bourge as well, with artwork on there with its art punk style for both of them. And then unboxed is the review section, and again it's a bit like, not quite so going back and finding out whether a game has come out as with the Behold section, but this is actual games that have come out and they've been played. So you've got various board games reviewed here. Big and small, some quite physically imposing, like Dodo. And then some like even based upon licenses, like there's a Rear Window board game, and then and so on. And it's a wide variety of different games. And even big scale games like Oathsworn into the Deep Wood with all those miniatures. Before we draw to a close with where we have essentially how to play, which is essentially gaming culture, and how this is playing with the alpha, how to deal with the number one player in your group, the lead player. Most notably, the one that sort of like kind of dominates play, or directs everyone whether you're playing a co-op game. And last of all, we have Shelf of Shame, which is the end article where a notable figure in the gaming hobby pulls the game off his shelf and plays it after it has been left languishing there for some time. This time it's Tom Brewster on Shut Up and Sit Down, the essentially YouTube series. And I don't think he's got an excuse here because he pulls off so many board games. He should have pulled this, taken this one down. But again, essentially he gets to look at a game he hasn't played and decide whether or not it remains in his collection or even on the shelf. So yeah, that is Senet issue number 9. Look forward to giving that a proper read and a review in due course. So, thanks for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed it, please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a package containing a book or game, or in this magazine, which I will pull out and talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice little cup of tea, then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. We'll be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.